rain, sunshine, pests, disease, and finally, and by no means least, defense. Okay? You are reliant on the rain because you need crops to grow. You're reliant on sunshine because you need crops to grow. You are reliant on ensuring that you don't have any pests because you have crops you want to grow. Same for disease and same for defense. Because unlike when you were an animist and you believe the divine spark is in everything, it's everywhere, in the rocks, in the trees, in each other, right? Well, now you are basically getting all this material. So you need to defend it because you didn't have stuff before. You didn't have things before. You need to defend it from other people. So what happens now? What is your belief system now? If you want more rain, who do you pray to? You pray for the rain god. If you want more sunshine, who do you pray to? You pray for the sun god. If you want to get rid of pests and disease, then who do you pray to? You pray for the god of good harvest. If you want good defense, who do you pray to? You pray to the war god. And this is how we got to polytheism. That's roughly how you spell it. I told you I'm bad at spelling. That's polytheism. Polytheism is the belief that there are multiple gods. That's all polytheism is. That is all what polytheism is. The belief in multiple gods. And you get the belief in multiple gods because you have a surplus of food. You've got lots and lots and lots of food. Right? You've got so much food to go around. So now, because your system has got more complex, and by the way, this complexity is really important. Right? Complexity is increased. It's a very simple nomadic life, isn't it? If you believe in everything is connected to one another, it's very simple. This is very, very complex. Well, not very complex. It's more complex than what the previous way in which we human beings lived were. If your complexity is higher, then how we understand the world has to change to fit this new layer of complexity. That's why we now have multiple gods, or a pantheon of gods, all right? Pantheon. Because we worry about different things, right? We also worry about water. Is it going to be clean? Right? Or most people don't understand clean drinking water when you're sort of at this level, but it doesn't really matter. So, complexity increases. You need more gods to fit that complexity. So now, if you've got a surplus of food and you've got lots and lots of gods that you need to pray to ensure that you get what you want, you get water, rain, sunshine, no pests, make sure that your armies win in battle, how are you going to pray to all these gods? Well, of course what you do is that if you're really successful, you build temples. Because you're now staying in the same place. Right? You're now staying in the same place. And the belief is that the gods themselves live inside these temples. So you believe that if you sacrifice, let's say, meat, men, wheat, jewelry, whatever it is, to the gods within this temple, they're going to give you their favour. And if you get their favour, then you're going to get food, victory in battle, and anything else that you might have, good wife, free of disease. Right? You're going to get all of these things. by worshipping these gods in these temples. So this was the start. This was the beginning. Because what happens in these temples? What happens in these temples? You suddenly have a new group of people. Because before now, in animism, what would you have is that everyone would contribute in some way. Okay, the women, the men, they'd go hunting, women would go gathering, they'd look after children. It was all very communal. All very communal. But now, because people live in villages, towns, cities, you don't need to go anywhere. And you need to communicate to your gods to ensure that they're going to give you what you need. What happens? You pray to priests. A priest is someone who is in charge of a temple. Right? These are the people who have a direct communication with the gods. What do priests provide to a society? The answer is nothing. Priests do not provide anything tangible to a society whatsoever. They just don't. Priests take complexity, so again, you believe you need to pray to these gods, and they use that, so prayer to gods, and they become the first middlemen. They believe that prostitution is the oldest occupation. It's not. It's a middleman. It's priest. That is the oldest occupation. Because for as long as there has been money, there's also been belief. Far longer. There's been belief far, far, far longer than what there has been money, as we learned last time. So the priests, the priest class, they end up being middlemen. Because the fundamentally, and this was the shift, okay? If you were an animist, where is God? Where is the mother goddess? The mother goddess is everywhere. It's in you. It's in the rocks. It's in the trees. But most importantly of all, it's accessible. Okay? It's in you. If the mother goddess is in you, if this connection to this divinity, okay, is in you, then what the fuck are the priests for? They're not needed. They're genuinely not needed. Because all you have to do is pray. Or not even pray, just, live your life and live in a way which is in balance with what they want to do if you're an animist. Simple, simple, simple life. So, this was the first great change, is that the priests convinced you that God, so this is the Lord, this is God, or gods, are in a temple, and if you want to get to God, then you have to go through the priests. Okay? There's no other way. There's no other way. If you want to get here, if you want to communicate to God, if you're a normal person, and you want to communicate to God, you have to go through the priests. Now, what that meant is that it was these people that suddenly had lots and lots of power. Lots of power. And this polytheism was the same way for the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Vikings. You name it. Right? This is how it worked. And even if you were, a Viking, and you've believed in Odin, Wotan, and other Norse gods, well, you still have to go to a shaman. You still have to go to a shaman, this priestly figure, in order to reach the gods. So these people literally bring nothing. Because divinity is within us. It's always been within us. But the great lie that you've been told is that God is elsewhere. That's the lie. That's the really, really big lie. If you believe that God is somewhere else and you need someone else to speak to him, then you are disempowered. And this is the first trick. Okay, this is the first trick. If you are disempowered and you believe that you can't have a relationship to God, you have to have a relationship to these people here who supposedly, God speaks through them and you speak through them to have a conversation with God, then these people have lots of power. Lots of power. So what happens if you have lots and lots and lots of power and you can tell people what to do? Otherwise, they're going to not have that connection with God. They're not going to get their crops. They're not going to, they're going to have disease and everything else. What is going to happen? Well, they're going to accumulate lots of wealth. And if you have lots of wealth and lots of power, then what's going to happen? You're going to hoard that wealth in your temples. And that is the beginning of the temple economy. Because you're getting offerings daily. Right? You get all your food, all your water, lodgings, everything. Everything is given for you. Right? Because the most important thing here with this system is you don't want the gods to screw you. So you give this to supposedly these special people that can speak to God, so you don't get screwed. Because if you don't give these things, you are going to get screwed. Now, who tells you that? These people tell you that. These people tell you, if you don't give us this and this and this and this, God is going to hate you. So you better give this to us, because remember, we live in God's house. We live in the temple. Because gods live in the temple. So you better give us all these things, otherwise God's going to hate you, or all these different gods are going to hate you. Now, the one good thing with this was that there were so many gods, so many of them, right, for different things. For instance, water, food, battle, the home, women. There's so many gods, so many different things. That this was a dispersed system, or as we call it, a decentralized system. So it meant that not one single temple could have all the power, all the food, everything. It all had to be shared. And if it's shared, it means not one single temple can overthrow the other. So what do we have again? Okay, we've got a balance. Okay, so we've got a balance. So with this decentralized faith-based system, we've got this balance. So not one single religious view can prevail and take over. So let's quickly go to the PowerPoint. So I've already talked about the mother goddess, collective ritual. I've talked about animal spirits. I've talked about these things already. And what you'll see here is that this belief that God isn't in you was this fundamental change. Right? If you can be convinced that the Lord, or that this divinity isn't within you, then you give away control and power to someone else. this speaker for God. And that is where these temple economies come in. So the earliest ones were Mesopotamia, 3500 BCE. Communal gathering space into economic powerhouses. They collected grain, tithes, managed irrigation systems, employed priests, administrators, and they functioned as the first corporations. Okay? So the temples demand tribute, and you're going to give them that tribute because, hey, you don't want the god to screw you, right? So you're going to give these tributes, right? They then stored it all, distributed it to places that need to go, and they enforce these threats. If you don't do this, God's going to hate you. Now, one of the big changes that took place was from polytheism to monotheism.